You feel lost, maybe not all the time, but often enough to wonder what's wrong. You wake up with a weight in your chest, move through the day like a stranger in your own life, and go to sleep wondering when it will start to make sense again. People around you seem to have it figured out. They're chasing goals, hitting milestones, making plans. Meanwhile, you're just trying to stay grounded while everything familiar quietly dissolves. But what if being lost isn't a flaw? What if it's a sign that you've outgrown the script? The world tells you to get back on track, find your direction, pick a goal, hustle harder, but the more you try to force clarity, the more it slips through your fingers. That's not failure. That's evolution. Because when a deeper truth is trying to rise, the surface must first fall apart. Feeling lost is the symptom of awakening. The first crack in the mask you were never meant to wear forever. You're not falling behind. You're falling inward. Into a space where performance can't protect you, and old ambitions no longer satisfy. It's disorienting, yes, but it's also necessary. You're not here to play the role. You're here to remember who you are beneath. This isn't the end of something, it's the moment before everything real begins. There comes a moment in life when the structure you've built begins to crack. Not from outside forces, but from something inside you quietly refusing to keep pretending. You try to ignore it at first. You tighten your grip on routines, habits, roles, hoping they'll anchor you back into a sense of normalcy. But they don't. They can't. Because something deeper has shifted. The life you constructed, the one that looks stable from the outside, starts to feel hollow. Conversations feel forced. Work feels meaningless. Even your own reflection in the mirror starts to look unfamiliar. You sense that a part of you is unraveling, and the scariest part is, you can't explain why. You just know that the old you is slipping away, and no matter how hard you try, you can't hold them together. This is the collapse, not of your life, but of the persona that carried it. The identity built on pleasing others, achieving approval, maintaining appearances. It no longer feels sustainable. You may feel guilt for wanting to walk away from things that once defined you. But that guilt is a signal that you're no longer available for a life that demands your self-abandonment. And the world won't understand this collapse. It will. Try to pathologize it. Call it burnout, a midlife crisis, depression. But deeper than any diagnosis is the truth. Your soul is no longer willing to be negotiated with. The version of you that existed just to survive is giving way to something more honest, more alive. And that transition feels like death. It feels like loss, because it is. You're losing the illusion, losing the mask, losing the part of you that was built for acceptance, not authenticity. And while that loss may ache, it's also sacred. It means you're no longer willing to live numb. It means the false self, the one crafted from performance and expectation, is finally crumbling, making space for someone real to emerge. This is not the end of you. It's the beginning of your return. You didn't end up lost because you failed. You ended up lost because you followed a map that was never meant to lead you home. From a young age, you were handed a set of directions, a silent script etched into every conversation, every expectation, every reward. Be good, be smart, be successful, be liked, climb the ladder, collect the titles, check the boxes. And if you do it all right, they said, you'll be happy. But what they didn't tell you is that this map wasn't drawn for you. It was built for control, not freedom. It was built for conformity, not meaning. It was a path paved by people who forgot who they were, passing down a blueprint not of fulfillment, but of survival. You followed it because you were told it was the way. You obeyed it because you thought it would keep you safe. And for a while, maybe it did. Until it didn't, till success felt empty, till the applause stopped meaning something, till the job, the lifestyle, the image, all of it started to feel like a costume you couldn't take off. You kept going, hoping clarity would catch up, but all it did was widen the gap between your outer life and your inner truth. That gap is where the ache lives, that quiet dissonance that no one sees but you feel every single day. And the more lost you felt, the more you blamed yourself, as if it was your failure to adapt, as if you were the broken one for not feeling whole in a life that was never designed for wholeness. But the truth is, the map lied. It wasn't that you took a wrong turn. It's that the road itself was leading you away from yourself. You don't need a better strategy. You don't need to hustle harder or try again with more intensity. You need to question the path itself. Who built it? Who benefits from you staying on it? And most importantly, where does it lead? And do you even want to go there? Because maybe the moment you felt lost wasn't a crisis. Maybe it was the first honest moment of your life. The moment you stepped off the grid. The moment you stopped chasing someone else's dream long enough to feel your own heartbeat. That discomfort you feel, that disorientation. It's not the absence of direction. It's the rejection of deception. You didn't fail the map failed you. And now, for the first time, you have the chance to build something of your own. Not a route to follow, but a rhythm to trust. A path. You don't walk by force, but by alignment. When the map fails, the silence rushes in. And in that silence, you start to feel everything you once outran. The restlessness, the heaviness, the strange emptiness that no distraction can quiet. It feels like chaos, like a storm inside your chest. You try to label it anxiety, overthinking, burnout, anything to make sense of it. But maybe what you're feeling isn't a breakdown. Maybe it's a signal, because before anything new can emerge, the noise has to fall away. And in that empty space, what first sounds like static may actually be something else. The faint rhythm of a truth you've ignored for too long. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It whispers, quietly, persistently, in the pit of your stomach, in the tension in your jaw, in the feeling that you can't keep going the way you've been going. Most people don't recognize the signal. They drown it out. They scroll past it, sedate it, bury it in busyness. You've started to notice, and that's why it hurts. Because once you stop numbing the dissonance, you have to feel what's underneath. The grief of pretending, the weight of unmet needs, the sadness of being loyal to an identity that no longer fits. But don't run from that grief. There's clarity inside it. It tells you exactly where you gave yourself away. It shows you the moments you said yes when you meant no. The years you smiled through the ache. The relationships where you kept shrinking just to stay accepted. It's not comfortable, but it's honest. And honesty is the first language of awakening. The discomfort isn't punishment. It's permission. It's your system pulling you out of autopilot, asking you to stop, to listen, to question. It's a soft rebellion against the life you've outgrown. And buried in that confusion is the compass you've been looking for, not outside of you, but within. That's the irony. What feels like being lost is often the beginning of finding your way, not because a new map appears, but because you finally stop looking for one. You start paying attention to the things that matter, the energy that rises in your body around certain people, the calm that visits when you let go of who you're supposed to be, the small, quiet moments that feel like home. It's not about answers anymore. It's about alignment, not logic, but truth, not clarity, but courage. The static is not chaos, it's a call. And the moment you stop trying to fix it, you'll realize it's been trying to guide you all along. What you're going through feels personal, uniquely disorienting. No one else could possibly understand this strange undoing of everything you once called yourself. But the truth is, this path has been walked before, not just by one or two, but by countless souls throughout history, across cultures, across generations. Because what you're experiencing isn't random, it's a pattern, an archetype, a sacred passage that nearly every awakened human being must cross. In ancient myths, it was called the hero's journey, not the part where they slay the dragon or win the treasure, but the part where they're cast out into the wilderness, when they're no longer who they were, but not yet who they're becoming. When the world they knew dissolves, and all that's left is silence, struggle, and a deeper invitation. Psychologist Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of peeling back every layer that was shaped by fear, family, culture, and ego, until the true self stands in the center of the rubble. In spiritual traditions, it was known as the dark night of the soul, not because it's evil, but because it's empty, a time when the old gods stop answering and the false light goes out, so you can find the flame burning inside you. And in all these stories, the mythic, the psychological, the spiritual, the wilderness comes first. The disorientation, the shedding, the sacred loneliness, not as punishment, but as initiation. Because you cannot awaken and stay the same. You cannot walk into your truth while clinging to your mask. You cannot remember who you are while reciting the script you were given. Something has to fall, and that something is usually the version of you that was built for performance, acceptance, and survival, not freedom. You may feel like you're losing yourself, but the deeper truth is, you're losing everything that's not really you. And, yes, it hurts. Transformation always costs comfort. You're not just releasing habits or goals, you're releasing identities, roles that once protected you, beliefs that once helped you belong, faces you wore so well that you forgot they weren't yours. But here's the miracle. As those false layers burn away, what's left is something unshakable, not louder, not stronger, just real, still, unapologetically you. This is the awakening. Not a lightning bolt, but a slow unraveling of illusions until truth is all that remains. Not a grand arrival, but a quiet return to the person you were before the world told you who to be. You're not broken. You're becoming. You're not lost. You're in initiation. And the fire you're walking through now is how you step into your real life. Eventually, your mind stops cooperating. Not in dramatic, obvious ways, but slowly, quietly. You find yourself unable to focus the way you used to. The goals that once lit a fire under you now leave you cold. Your to-do list feels irrelevant. Even the simple act of showing up feels like dragging your soul through quicksand. And the more you try to force it, the more resistance you feel. This isn't laziness. It's not weakness. It's rebellion. Your nervous system is no longer willing to sustain a life that demands your betrayal. Your body, your emotions, your very thoughts begin pushing back against roles that numb you, routines that drain you, and relationships that silence your truth. You try to reason with yourself. You try to push through. But your system won't let you. Because something inside of you is finally saying, no more. And that no doesn't always sound loud or confident. Sometimes it sounds like exhaustion. Sometimes it sounds like anxiety. Sometimes it sounds like forgetting everything, losing track of time, withdrawing from the noise. These aren't failures. These are symptoms of awakening. They're signs that your mind is realigning with a self that refuses to settle. You may feel like you're falling apart, but in reality, you're falling away from patterns that served the false self, not the true one. Your psyche is dismantling the machinery of performance. It's uninstalling old beliefs, deconstructing narratives you inherited before. You knew how to question them. And yes, that process feels chaotic, but it's the chaos of clearing space, not destruction for its own sake. Still, there's a trap here. When things begin to unravel, most people assume something is wrong. They reach for more structure, more discipline, more control. They mistake their soul's rebellion for dysfunction and try to fix themselves back into the very box that suffocated them. But what's happening isn't a malfunction. It's an upgrade. You're shedding an operating system that was never yours to begin with. The you who could grind endlessly, please effortlessly, achieve compulsively, that version is gone. Because it was never sustainable. It was a survival mechanism. And now that you're safe enough to stop surviving, your system is demanding something else. Truth. The exhaustion, the resistance, the disinterest in the game. These are not signs of defeat. They are the body's quiet demand for alignment, for rest, for reality, for a life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to be functional. This is what it means to wake up on every level, mentally, emotionally, physically. And once you begin, you can't go back. Your mind won't let you, your body won't let you, and more importantly, your soul won't let you. When the old system breaks down, the urge is to replace it quickly. You want a new plan, a new path, a new version of certainty to silence the discomfort. But awakening doesn't offer a clean replacement. It doesn't hand you a new map. Instead, it asks you to live without one for a while, to sit in the space between what collapsed and what hasn't yet formed. This space is not easy. It's vulnerable. It's slow. It demands you move differently, not with speed, but with sincerity. It asks you to stop chasing clarity and start listening for alignment. You don't need to know the whole road. You only need to know what feels real right now. For the first time, your questions begin to shift. You no longer ask, "What should I do to succeed?" Instead, you ask, "What feels honest?" You stop asking, "Who do I need to become to be loved?" And you begin asking, "Who am I when I'm not trying to perform?" And those questions, quiet as they may be, are everything. They are your new compass. Not loud, not flashy, but unmistakably yours. They guide you toward what feels nourishing, not just impressive. Toward people who don't need your performance, only your presence. Toward work that may not be glamorous, but doesn't make you feel divided inside. You begin noticing subtle shifts. Your body relaxes around certain people. Time stretches when you do things that align with your rhythm. Silence starts to feel more like sanctuary than threat. You stop needing to prove, explain, or defend. You stop negotiating your truth for temporary belonging. This is not a sudden transformation. It's a slow remembering. At first it feels fragile. Doubt creeps in. Old conditioning whispers that you're falling behind, wasting time, playing, small. But something in you, something deeper, knows this is the way. That this, whatever this is more alive than anything you've done from fear. So you follow the pull. You honor the pauses. You let go of what feels forced, not with bitterness, but with grace. And you begin to rebuild your life, not around goals, but around values, not around approval, but around peace. You no longer measure success by how it looks, but by how it feels, and that quietly is how it begins. The new life doesn't come all at once. It comes in pieces, moments of resonance, flashes of calm, a single breath where you feel, finally, like yourself. That's your compass now. Not ambition, not pressure, not the map that lied, but the truth that whispers from within, the one you were always meant to follow. No one tells you that waking up will cost you something, that choosing truth over illusion comes with a quiet kind of grief. Because as you become more yourself, you begin to see, clearly, painfully, just how much of your life was built on survival and how much of it can't come with you. You'll lose things, people, places, roles, even parts of your identity. You'll lose relationships that only worked when you were smaller, quieter, more agreeable. You'll lose admiration from those who loved your mask. You'll lose belonging in spaces where fitting in required you to split yourself in half. And it won't always be dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle, a growing distance, a change in rhythm, a conversation that ends with silence instead of understanding. You'll find yourself standing in rooms you used to light up, realizing they no longer recognize you. And maybe they never really did. This loss hurts, not because you want the old life back. You don't. But because it still mattered. Even the false version of your life had meaning. You put your heart into it. You sacrificed for it. You built around it. And now, it's crumbling. There will be moments when you question everything, when you sit in the quiet and wonder if you made a mistake, when you long for the comfort of ignorance, to unsee, unfeel, undo what you've awakened to. You'll miss the simplicity of pretending. But pretending comes at a price too, your soul. And that's a price you're no longer willing to pay. So you stay. You grieve. You allow the old life to peel away layer by layer, even if it leaves you raw. Because in that rawness, something else begins to take root. Not a new identity, but a deeper integrity. The kind that can't be taken. The kind that doesn't shift based on who's watching. And slowly, you begin to realize everything you lost was a transaction. You gave up comfort, but gained clarity. You gave up being liked, but gained peace. You gave up belonging in shallow spaces, but gained the ability to stand alone and feel whole. Awakening is not easy. It's not clean. It doesn't always look brave. Sometimes it just looks like walking away from everything familiar, in the name of something you can't even describe yet, but feel with every part of your being. And that feeling, quiet, steady, unshakable, is what tells you the cost was real. But so is the freedom. There's a shift that happens quietly, almost invisibly, after the chaos of awakening begins to settle. It's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It comes like a breath you didn't know you were holding, finally released. And in that breath, you realize you're no longer surviving your life. You're choosing it. At first, this feels unfamiliar. You're used to reacting, to circumstances, to expectations, to old roles that demanded your compliance. But now something has changed. You're not waiting for permission anymore. You're not seeking validation. You're not outsourcing your authority to people who never knew the real you. You've stepped into something quieter, steadier, and far more powerful. Sovereignty. Sovereignty isn't control. It's not the illusion of having it all figured out. It's presence, clarity, the ability to hear your own voice beneath the noise and trust it. Even when it scares you. Even when it contradicts everything you were taught to believe. You stop needing to be understood by everyone. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop overperforming to earn love that should never have required a performance. Not because you've grown cold, but because you've grown rooted. Rooted in truth, rooted in self-respect, rooted in a knowing that no one else gets to define your worth, your path, or your peace. And with that rootedness comes vision. Not a 5-year plan or a perfect outcome, but a way of seeing, a way of moving through the world that isn't reactive, but intentional. You no longer chase. You no longer beg. You no longer confuse chaos with passion or silence with rejection. You've met yourself in the storm, and now you trust your own weather. It doesn't mean life stops being difficult. You'll still face heartbreak, still be challenged, still feel moments of doubt. But the difference now is that you don't abandon yourself in those moments. You stay, you breathe, you respond with presence, not panic. And that is what power really is. It's not dominance. It's self-loyalty. It's not perfection. It's permission to change, to evolve, to let yourself be real without apology. You are no longer a product of someone else's vision. You are not a reaction to your wounds. You are not the echo of expectations. You are the author now. And this story, the one you're writing with your bare hands and your full heart, it doesn't need to impress anyone. It only needs to be true. Because from this place, everything you build will carry your signature, not your trauma, not your conditioning, you. And that's what sovereignty is. Not becoming someone else, but returning fully to who you've always been. So here you are, not broken, not lost, just becoming. The confusion, the collapse, the grief, they weren't signs of failure. They were signs of life. Signs that your soul refused to keep performing a story that wasn't yours. Signs that something deeper was waking up inside you. You were never meant to live numb, never meant to shrink into someone else's mold, never meant to call survival a life. Feeling lost didn't mean you failed. It meant you stopped lying. It meant you started listening. It meant you were being called, not to fit back in, but to rise. And now, you're not walking anyone's path but your own. You won't always know where it leads. It won't always feel clear, but it will feel honest. And that honesty is your direction. That truth is your compass. That presence, even in the fog, is your freedom. You don't need to be found. You need to be felt. Fully, fiercely, authentically. Because this is the moment you'll look back on and whisper to yourself, that's when I woke up.